I was orphaned at the age of 6, so all I could say is I don't really enjoy talking about my past, and that's what's behind that door.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the closest thing we'll probably ever have to an emergency episode of Haunting the Narrative. So we are thrilled to be talking to you today. I am Meg. I am Menina123 on AO3, and I unfortunately have a cold today, but that's good because we've received complaints that I sound too much like Lizzie. So now you'll be able to tell us apart. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lizzie.
Hey, I'm Lizzie. I'm Shiraka Orion on AO3 and Tumblr. And yeah, hopefully today you can tell us apart a little bit better.
Hi, I'm Natasha. I think you could always tell me apart, so that's good. I'm Hell Chi Chi on Tumblr, AO3, Discord, wherever you hang out.
Hi, I'm Mairead, and to confuse matters further, I decided to try and imitate Meg's accent. How's this sounding? Is that helpful? Sorry, let me try that again. I'm Mairead. I'm Savoir Faire on AO3 and Woman in Winter on Tumblr, and a general menace in real life.
Well, we are excited to be here today for this special bonus episode because on Christmas Eve, Jonathan Stroud committed some war crimes by sharing a delightful gift with the fandom, which is a new short story about Lockwood, which he titled The Apple Tree. And we all freaked out immediately about this, and now we are here to talk with you all about it today.
We have convened an emergency session of The Hague so as to, judge him for his violation of the Geneva Convention.
I'm here to defend Mr. Stroud. I think this was a wonderful Christmas gift. I truly appreciate it.
Free your man. He did it all, but you don't care.
I think from that, you can tell our general feelings about this short work of fiction, which is, mine can be summed up by basically saying, how dare you, Jonathan? How dare you do this to me on Christmas while I am in the middle of celebrating with my family? And then I had an existential crisis about Anthony Lockwood. And a lot of my thoughts were really based on the Christmas story that Stroud shared last year, which if you haven't read, we suggest you go back and read that as well, which is a delightful little domestic scene of everyone hanging out at Portland Row. There is baking, there is knitting, there is tea, there are games. It's very fun and sweet.
There's like a pocket dimension in the timeline.
December was pulled out of the Hollow Boy to account for the Christmas fic where Skull and Kips are both at the agency.
Yeah, there's some timeline issues with last year's story, but you know what it is? Happy. And you know what this year's story is not? Happy. So that was my general feeling. How did you all feel? Lizzie?
Oh, I loved it. I love feral Lockwood. I love that this actually confirmed a lot of my headcanons about his family life before we knew him. The last line did break my heart, absolutely. But, I think this is a Christmas tradition. You gotta have a little bit of tears with your happiness, right?
I do think it's a little bit hypocritical of everybody to be a bit upset about this, because I have a very clear memory of last year. Around this time last year, we were all writing what we were calling Yas Black Winter Fix. So everybody was writing Hollow Boy angst for fun. So it's a bit hypocritical to say, hey, Mr. Stroud, that angsty story that you wrote, you can't go write it. But when I started reading this story, I thought, oh, this is going to be this really cute, like, Lockwood family Christmas from before everything went pear-shaped, basically. And then there was that line where it was, because he was a precocious child, his wish was granted to him early. And I thought, oh no, I know what this story is going to be about. How dare you? It felt a bit like a bait and switch.
I think I was kind of similar, when I saw like Christmas tree, Christmas story, and it's baby Lockwood. I was like, oh, are we going to get some like early Lockwood family cuteness? And no, we're not. It's kind of, I don't know, little match seller girl, if you know that story. Like, okay, it's not that miserable, but it is. it is in the tradition, more in the tradition of kind of Dickensian Christmas misery. Maybe that's what it reminds me of. I've been like firing out like things that it reminds me of, because it reminds me of some literary thing that I have read, and can I put my finger on it? No. So maybe it's Dickens, with all the descriptions and the kind of Victorian vibes. But yeah, I think mostly I was a bit sad by the about the image of Lockwood's parents that it gave, because I think before reading this, I mean, yes, we definitely knew his parents were distant, they were coming and going, but I had maybe a bit of a naive like view that they were still like, you know, they were still someone that he looked up to, and maybe he does, but it just, they came across in the story to me as a bit more neglectful than they do in the series.
I mean, they don't really come up in the series at all, though.
It's true. I just kind of filled in the
I
blanks.
mean, he says that he barely remembers them. So actually, this dovetails really well with my feelings about it. The fact that he doesn't remember them well, the fact that they had just returned from some kind of trip and were still getting crates sent to the house, because he says that some of those crates show up after they died. So I think they were on an extended research trip when he was around that age. And I wonder if it wasn't that they were kind of maybe stuck at home with a baby/toddler for a few years and weren't able to go about. And then by the time he's able, you know, old enough to remember, they're like, okay, we got to go do our research. It's very important. It's life-saving. It's world-changing. And it was. Or maybe it's just that Lockwood's a little bit of an attention whore and didn't think they paid him enough attention.
Also true.
I mean, most 5-year-olds, I think, feel that way, to be fair. Most 5-year-olds want more attention.
Mommy, look at me, look at me. You have no idea how many times a day I hear that.
Oh, that's cute though.
For anyone who doesn't know, I have a 5-year-old.
Yeah, I also have a 5-year-old, and you literally spend all day, like, I take him out and I give him like 3 hours of solid straight attention. We get home, the second my eyes are off him, he's gone and broken something because he wants more.
I love the very first paragraph of this story is my favorite. The description of 5-year-old Lockwood as wiry as a whippet. Energy fizzed through the pipes and fibers of his body, from the soles of his feet to his narrow dancing hands. I read that and I just melted. I was just like, oh, this is why Stroud is the master. This is why we are all taking writing lessons from him.
Yeah.
It's a great description, for sure.
I think he's kind of described as dancing more than once in this story, isn't he?
Yeah, he dances a couple of times. Like, he dances away from his nanny, I think, and he dances away from Jessica, and then he comes back and circles around to her.
Lucy describes his fencing as dancing a lot as well, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
That ballet AU is becoming more and more realistic by the second.
I was going to say, for all that he's actually much more cerebral in the books than he is in the show, he's still very physical. And I think this shows that really well.
Yeah. And it's funny.
He may be tall and skinny, but he's down to fight.
Absolutely. It's funny how he's so kind of, I mean, you're right. He is cerebral in the books in a different way. Yeah, in a way that maybe we don't see so much in the show. And, you know, in the show it's like, oh, my brain aches when I write a shopping list, or whatever it is. But in this, he seems a little bit more actually like that show version of him. Like, you know, his reaction to Jessica reading a book is, nah, boring, give me a sword. You know, which again is a little boy thing, isn't it?
He's such a feral child.
Yeah, he's running around everywhere. He talks about how disheveled he looks, and he's all tousled and, you know, very childlike in the way he looks.
I just feel very, very validated about that, because I don't know why I feel weird saying that I started writing a fic on this, but a while ago I started writing this boys fic, and I started to dig into kind of like pre-canon Lockwood, and I thought, you know what, I reckon he was probably like dirty jeans, spitting at people, completely, absolutely feral. Everybody disagreed with me, and I was like, no, I think I'm feeling very validated, because it looks a lot more possible now, doesn't it?
I actually latched straight onto that. I love the idea that him wearing those suits and putting on those charming smiles is as much him dressing up as when he's doing any other dress up out of his basket of clothes.
Mm-hmm. No, now I'm going to be an agency head. Now I'm going to wear a suit. It's that kind of...
Yeah, to a certain extent. But also, I mean, like, the suit is kind of his emotional armor, isn't it? And, like, that is a very real part of him, the repression. Like, this kind of, like, this sort of wild dancing boy he has been buttoned up a bit. He has, and is that a performance, or is that, okay, no, I'm putting this part of myself away because it's too vulnerable? Like, I think there's a difference there.
Tamed by circumstance and necessity in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
It proves Jessica right that he was going to have to change to survive, which she says in this story.
Oh yeah, well,
It's some of both, right? It can, the way he dresses, the way he acts, it can be both him, performing as an adult and kind of professional armor for himself, and again, hiding away some of those more tender emotions and feelings that he doesn't feel comfortable sharing.
and I mean, the other thing is not to be completely postmodern about this whole thing, but we do become our performances. Like, there is, like, it's not really possible if you're performing something all the time that not even fake it till you make it. Like, we like to convince ourselves that, oh, I'm just pretending to be X thing. But if you're pretending to be X thing all the time, it's because you are X thing, really, I think, or you want to be. And is there a real difference there? So I think it's difficult to look at Lockwood in his suits and his charm and his professionalism and say, oh, that's all an act. I mean, some of it's an act, some of it's what he wants to be, some of it's who he is. And look, we just done the Lockwood episode, and here we are again, going all over it. Thanks for nothing, Stroud.
Well, in many ways, Stroud's story fits really into the episode we just did on Lockwood. So we're kind of honestly considering this episode an extension of the episode we just did, because we have all this new Lockwood content to dive into. Well, another thing, small, but that I felt very validated by in this story about Lockwood, which is just the moment where he comes back and sits with Jessica and lets him pet her hair, which is like something I think I have written into so many fics. And I feel so validated about that, like, house cat version of Lockwood that is officially canon. So
There's a lot of animalistic imagery in this, actually. He's a house cat. He's like a whippet. He's digging in the back garden like a feral dog. He's swinging from the tree. Yeah, like a monkey.
He just has so much energy in this. It's just bursting out of him.
I think maybe he's just a boy. Like,
Yeah, there is that.
indeed.
Yeah, like my stepmom said, he's all boy.
we do see more of Jessica in this, I wanted to call it a fic, in this story than we've ever seen before. Her trying to reach him, her plans. I want to know what her plans were. Was she planning to become an agent? Was she planning to travel the globe like her parents? What do you guys think?
I don't know. I mean, when she says the stuff in the Fitz manual, this is what's going to keep us alive. I mean, it almost sounds like, okay, she's planning to be an agent. Maybe it was her plan to open up an agency.
That's an interesting idea.
I think she was already raising Lockwood for sure.
Exactly.
She was already the only one reaching out for her little brother. She was looking out for him. She was trying to calm him down and teach him some manners, respectability, or at least life skills.
I find it interesting how it's phrased like she was the only one who tried to reach him, because it makes me feel like he was a little bit like of the outcast in a way. And I have heard that happen in families as well, where the youngest child, especially when there's a big age gap like that, the parents aren't really used to raising young kids anymore, and they either overbaby them or they find them kind of annoying, and they end up being kind of the outsider in the family. And when he talks about, the parents being distracted all the time, it's like Lockwood's just kind of left to his own devices the whole time, isn't it?
Actually, Mairead was just saying how the suit is his armor, but in some ways he's always been hard to reach. He's always been running away from those who would care for him, everyone but Jessica, and then later Lucy.
Yeah. Well, Jessica was the only one who tried, wasn't she? In the beginning.
Jessica was the only one who tried, which that's the line that stuck out the most from me from this entire story, was that she was the only one who tried to reach him, just because it reminded me so much of our favorite Lucy Carlisle, and how even when Lockwood does not want to be reached, she never stops trying to reach him and pushing further and further.
Well, thanks, Meg, for making me cry on this Friday night.
I mean, thank Jonathan Stroud. He's the one who...
Tears for Christmas.
Tears for Christmas, indeed.
Mairead, you are the last person who gets to complain about this. You made me cry so badly last Christmas.
Oh yeah, I should get back to that. Yeah, no,
I have no idea what you're talking about. Would you like to explain for the audience and me?
Oh god, we'll have to edit this out later, but it was that fic I wrote where Lockwood gets hypothermia for Christmas from sitting in his parents on his parents' graves and just, you know, kind of getting soaked. And then he goes to confession because it's me.
Well, and that's the fic where you have all like the Donald and Celia backstory about like them having children, right?
No, that's another one, which honestly is very similar. Like I've written.
Okay.
To be honest, I'm so pissed off about this stupid story, right? Because Stroud has like junked all my headcanons about the Lockwoods, which were, to be honest, maybe I'm projecting here. I did, even though they are clearly distant, I did like picture them as very intensely loving people, but people who thought that they had more time. And who also thought, I mean, I think you already said this, Lizzie, who thought they were doing something really important. And it is something that we actually see in Lockwood himself. Like he has so much drive and ambition, and we've talked about all this already. He has so much drive and ambition, but he like sometimes allows that to come between him and the people he loved. And it's sad and ironic to see that he's just imitating his parents in this. And
that, ouch.
No, but the Hollow Boy, that's exactly what he does to Lucy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Think of that smile he gives her, like after, I mean, I know he's doing this very consciously, but it's automatic, polite, but disengaged. Like, and I think you can really see him mirroring his absent parents there. This is what you do when things are getting too intense and your big mission is being threatened. Withdraw. So yeah, now I've made myself sad. I tried to say Stroud and sad at the same time. New emotion just dropped, babe. Wake up. It's Strad. It's what happens when Stroud writes a Christmas story.
I was going to say, I think this story has a lot of good foreshadowing, actually, for the series, and a lot of symbolism that we've seen throughout the series is pulled into this story. The story is so short, and it manages to pack so much in. I think someone wanted to talk about the apple tree. Who wanted to talk about the apple tree?
I will kick off talking about the apple tree, which is just, obviously, that is the title of this story. I also keep wanting to say fic, but that's the title of this story. But the apple tree kind of is woven throughout the entire narrative of the entire series. But there's a couple moments where it's particularly important in the series. And one of those, the first ones is in The Creeping Shadow, which is when Lucy has come back to Lockwood and Co., but she just kind of as a visitor, not as a permanent resident. And she sits in the back garden, she looks at it, and she has complicated feelings about being there and seeing it again because it is such a reminder of home. But there are other times as well where it shows up in the narrative. And some of the other ones are, of course, at the very end of The Empty Grave, Lucy vows to make time to pick the apples that are on the tree already, which shows they've, decided to keep on living, and she's going to take time to enjoy the moment rather than just working all the time and getting caught up in fighting ghosts all the time. And of course, the apple tree is very notable because it also relates to Jessica, who Lockwood, the night that she dies, Lockwood was out playing in the apple tree. And she tries to kind of get him to come inside to help her, to go through their parents' things, and he doesn't, and he's there, and then he's in the playroom when she finds the ghost. So the apple tree is very important overall to the...
When she dies, when she leaves him, finally.
So sad.
Sorry, I'm not emotional. You're emotional.
We're all emotional. I think it's like the apple tree throughout the books is kind of a reflection of sort of how their home life is doing, like the health of the tree and the health of like how they are. Like, I suppose it's a symbol of their neglect of themselves and kind of their future.
I think we might be reading a bit too much into that.
I mean, you say that, but he called this story The Apple Tree.
It's only, and I've got the ebook, so I just searched. I did not know that off the top of my head. It's not mentioned until the second book, and then it's only mentioned in like Lockwood's looking out at it while he's telling George to hurry up with the washing up.
But after that, it manages to appear in almost every book.
Yeah, and almost every time Lockwood talks about his family, he talks about the apple tree.
Yeah, it's very symbolic of his family.
It's very interesting that, like, the more he talks about it, the more Lucy talks about it, I suppose. There's a parallel there.
And also life and living and rebirth. You know, apple trees, they lose their leaves in the winter and then they bud again in the spring when Lucy returns during the creeping shadow. And they finally bear fruit.
They bear
at the
fruit,
end.
and Lucy takes the time to enjoy it, or at least she vows to take the time to enjoy the fruit.
No, I think she's writing, like, in the it's a past imperfect. I don't know. Anyway, she's already done it by the time she's written it.
Well,
No, I interpret it that way as well.
Yeah.
That she's saying they do make time for it that year, finally.
Yeah.
yeah.
But after the events of the narrative that they're describing in The Empty Grave. Confusing.
Well, she says at the beginning that she's writing it 2 months after.
One thing I would like to go back to is, have we really discussed what we learned about Jessica's character in this? Because I think that's one of the biggest revelations. I don't think we've gone into it much yet.
Well, we talked about her plans. What else did you want to say about that?
Oh, we did. I suppose I do think it's kind of interesting that she's revealed to be a little bit intellectual, and as a contrast to Lockwood's kind of more, I don't know, planning oriented.
He's more field strategy, isn't he?
Yeah, strategy, planning, action, whereas she seems to be someone who's more into the research and intellect, sort of abstract information side of things, information for its own sake.
Now we want to talk a little bit more about a couple of the other instances of foreshadowing that we see in this story. And one of them is related to, another one of them is related to Portland Row, which is Lockwood fortifying the back entrance of Portland Row. And, you know, at this point in time, it's to keep ghosts out with his sticks and whatever else he had that a 5-year-old boy would have to protect his family. But we see, obviously, him do the same thing at the end of The Empty Grave to protect them all from non-ghostly threats as well.
That's what takes out Winkman, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The booby trap.
Tripwire, whatever, on the back step.
Yeah, and then he falls onto one of his henchman's knives.
Ouch.
What a way to go, right?
Yeah, henchmaxing.
There's something very sad, though, about this image of him wanting to defend his home and his family, and he can't. He can't keep any of them alive.
Thanks,
Again,
Lizzie.
with the making me cry.
Sorry. He succeeds with Lucy and George, I was going to say.
He does. He does succeed. He does.
I mean, it is, in a way, it's a very much like kind of an abandoned child thing, isn't it? He's trying to keep, like, you know, if everyone keeps leaving him, even then, before his parents have died, like the attempt to defend his home, it's a little bit like he's trying to keep the people he loves close to him. He's trying to keep them safe. There's already this sense in him that that his family is in some way threatened. Like there's an instability there.
Yeah, you all can't see Lizzie right now, but she looks like she's about to like burst into tears. We're all getting very emotional about this.
I'm not. I'm British.
All right, let's talk about something less emotionally charged. Let's talk about the timeline.
Our favorite topic.
I was about to say less emotionally charged. I know how passionate you all get about timelines.
I am very glad that I'm not going to have to chop and dice up a calendar to try and fit this into a timeline somewhere for Twitter.
That's true, although there is something interesting here, which is that Lockwood is 5 at the beginning of this story. It says he's 5, and we know from the show that he was 6 when his parents died. Now, assuming that they're on the same timeline, I guess there's that little break in the middle of this story, and he turns 6. They're in the...
See, I don't think they're on the same timeline in the show, because my theory with the show is that Jessica dies when he's older. Her death is much more recent, and that's why Lockwood in the show is so much more of a basket case.
Okay, so perhaps in the book universe, his parents died when he was 5. And this also explains maybe why he has so few memories of them in the book.
He was 5 is very young. He wouldn't have retained many memories of them.
Yeah, I think we'll probably have a whole episode about the way that his family haunts the narrative and haunts him and the house and everything.
So the first ghost bit I do actually want to talk about a little bit, because he mentions it in The Hollow Boy and he mentions it in The Empty Grave that they were his first ghosts. But you always... It's a little bit like how when he tells George and Lucy about Jessica's room, he kind of phrases it how, you know, he wasn't in the room when it happened, and he basically was. Because he was out in the garden with the ghosts. And then his nanny sent him back out in the garden. Like, one more time? 2 more times? He wasn't seeing them through the window. He was there.
And he was quite upset by it. He and his nanny come to blows over it and are crying. We haven't even talked about the fact that the nanny slaps him, which is so sad, and also paralleling Lucy's story again.
I don't know, like Lucy's mum smacked her. Lucy's mum smacked her because she was messing around in a place where ghosts had almost killed people before. Whereas Lockwood's nanny slaps him because he won't go back out in the garden with the ghosts.
Yeah, this is clearly a terrible nanny, and it's his fourth nanny. What happened to the other 3? Is he just that hard to? Is he that much of a hellion?
It is very Mary Poppins, isn't it? Like, you know, the family, like the kind of the broken family with the nannies, the kind of revolving door with the nannies going in and out because the children are so unbearably like nutty,
Neglected.
Well, I mean, really, really, they're just normal children who need affection and attention, which they're not getting, which is the whole point of Mary Poppins. But yeah, I mean, there is like the whole thing that this lady is the 4th nanny that he's had. It really did make me think of that.
The only permanency in his life is Jessica, isn't it? His parents are there, and then they're not, and then they're there, and then they're not, and then the nannies keep
I love how much
changing.
of Jessica's character we see here. Like, she is so open and warm and understanding of Lockwood.
Yeah.
Even though Lockwood wants nothing to do with what she's interested in.
Yeah, what is she interested in?
Books?
It seems like it. Like, she's reading the Fitz manual for fun. He asks her, you know, what are you doing reading? Reading's dull. And then she says, the Fitz manual isn't, which, oh my God, it's like, I don't know. Imagine if you like walked in on someone and they were reading like a health and safety manual. They're like, oh, isn't this riveting? It keeps you alive. I suppose ghosts are a bit more interesting than your average health and safety manual. But, you know, it does sound to me like Jessica's a little bit of a nerd.
I read the Player's Handbook for fun when I was that age, so I really can't throw stones.
I was about to say, as per our earlier discussion, I think that's still nerd behavior. I'm sorry.
Oh, I am unapologetically a nerd. It's just, are we saying that Jessica is a nerd?
It feels a bit like of a nerdish sort of interest, doesn't it? I mean, I suppose how do you define nerd? To me, it's kind of like interested in abstract information or theory for its own sake, in a certain sense. Although I do think Jessica does seem to have a practical application for it. Like, you know, she says when she's talking about it tells you how much lavender to hang at your window. Excuse me, I have to stop and bite something because of the whole lavender in her room thing. That's another delicious bit of foreshadowing. Thanks, Mr. Stroud. I'm Strad again.
Oh my God, I didn't even...
Oh gosh, and him hovering at the door and not going into her room. Him hovering at the door and not going into her room.
Uh-huh.
We see that very, very visually in the show. We maybe don't see it as much in the books, but you have to imagine he did hover outside her door a lot after she died.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Oh my God, not really.
Come on, let's go and play.
I do think, I mean, the books make a lot of they put a lot of emphasis on the ways that Lucy reminds Lockwood of Jessica, but to me this whole like intense interest of hers in like kind of the slightly nerdish interest in all things ghostly, it's a bit reminiscent of George.
But this may actually be where Lockwood gets his intellectual side, right? We were saying that we see his physical side here, and when did he become so smart and intellectual and planning things? Maybe he got that from Jessica.
I mean, it's always interesting in the text because we see Lockwood, he's fighting, he's physical, he's a great field commander, he's just active and go, go, go. And then it's, oh, my parents were researchers, you know, and his best mate is someone who's got his nose in the book all the time. And it's like, well, none of that kind of jives. And now you see his family in this little story. And you can see, oh, this is why he likes nerdy people, because this is what he was raised with. This is why he gets on so well with George, because this is probably what he associates with family, knows in books.
And of course he gets on so well with Lucy because she tries to reach him for the first time in how many years since Jessica died? Okay, I can't take much more. I am going to die. I see Meg is going to die. I think we need to wrap this up.
Yeah, come on, let's go. All right, so there is something that they want to talk about that they have kind of been biting back this whole episode, because we just keep coming in here with Mary Poppins references and things instead to throw them off, because I know they're both going to cry.
I'm probably not going to cry, but I will think about crying. But I think what we're talking about is the final line of this little story. Okay, which is, I'm going to read it. I'm going to attempt to read it. Which is Jessica saying, "Don't be scared, Anthony," she said. "We'll always be together. I'll never leave you."
And the crowd starts bawling.
It's just a shot to the heart.
I'm gonna mute myself so I can scream for a second.
It's a shot to the heart, really.
The dramatic irony in that line is like, yeah. And then she dies.
Does she leave? Does she leave though? Does she not continue haunting the narrative?
I mean, she continues
And the
haunting the
house.
bedroom almost, doesn't she? She doesn't leave.
She is still very tangibly present, like partly just in Lockwood's behavior, just in the way he like seeks out people that remind him of her. Partly, in that kind of ruined space that Lucy mentions, like she literally, like she took a piece of him with her, and she's kind of there in negative space, like that sort of echo of her in him the whole time. But
I actually think you could take a much more positive spin on this, which is that the ones who love you never really leave you. And her love is there with him, in the house with him, and in the people that he finally is able to open up to later.
oh yeah,
There, is that more positive? Does that heal a few
That is
wounds?
the side that I'm on. I agree with that, Lizzie.
I mean, I was getting there. You guys have to let me like wallow for a second before I climb out. Come on, I'm a Catholic. You gotta give me this. But no, I agree. I like, I think it is encouraging that she stays with him. I mean, yes, in that painful way, but also, I think like grief is such a huge part of Lockwood and Co. And a lot of the time what it's saying is that, yes, we grieve. It's because we love people. So I think, yeah, what is haunting the narrative is the love. And I think it's why so many of us continue to be completely mental about these books, which are just kind of casually posted up in the 9 to 12-year-old section of Waterstones. Like, I would no more give this to a 9 to 12-year-old. Well, I mean, maybe I might, like, if it was...
Actually, I gave it to my 10-year-old, but I had to sign them out of the library because they are in the young adult section. So she needed parental permission.
Well, I suppose the cannibalism's a bit much. Anyway, the Guppy case. Anyway, all this to say, I do think that ultimately it's positive because she does stay with him. She does watch over him. And it's painful, but it's also beautiful. And that's why I'm just mental about this series.
Well, and there are so many reasons why we all love this series, which is why we have so many more episodes coming down the pipeline for you in the future, including...
So, in the next month and change, we are going to be releasing an episode on the economy, which I know makes everybody so excited. It made us excited, okay? Look, we're doing this for us. We're also going to be releasing an episode on the Ezekiel. An episode on Scarlet and Brown, because if you haven't read it, you're missing out. And the next book is out next month, and I am super excited for that. Everybody else is just humouring me.
She's got a gun to my head again.
She says, like she didn't finish the whole second book in like a day. Finally, we're going to be giving the crowd what they want and releasing an episode on Locklisle.
So stay tuned to, you can follow us a bunch of places online to get updates about when all of these episodes are released. You can email us at hauntingthenarrativepod@gmail.com with any questions. You can visit our website, hauntingthenarrative.wixsite.com/podcast. And you can find us on Tumblr at Haunting the Narrative Pod. We're also Haunting the Narrative Pod on Instagram, and we are HTN Podcast on Twitter. So lots of places you can come find us. Please do say hi. And we have been so delighted to talk about this delightful, I don't know if delightful is the right word, this wonderfully written short story, let's say that, with you today. And thank you to all of you who are listening in. Thanks for joining us on this emergency post-Christmas episode of the podcast. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you, Mr. Stroud.
Bye. Happy New Year.